So in the most recent update in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, we finally have a leak showcasing to us how Pendulum Summoning is going to work in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. And in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing to you guys how to Pendulum Summon and how it's going to work in the game. So for all of you guys that have never played Pendulum Summoning or have never Pendulum Summoned before in the TCG, this video is going to help you guys out. But for all of you guys that were looking forward to potentially seeing Pendulum Summoning be absolutely insane, well, I got news for you guys. Instead of Master Rule 3 being in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, it's going to be Master Rule 4, and Pendulum Summons are going to be in the Spell and Trap card zone. So we're going to discuss about that and my thoughts and opinions in today's video. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the reason why the community knows how Pendulum Summoning is going to work in Duel Links is because thanks to the latest update, we have the new pictures or tutorial assets on showcasing new players how to Pendulum Summon in Duel Links. As you can see in the images on screen right now, we have images showcasing what a pendulum monster is and what zones the pendulum monsters are going to be in. And as you guys can see on the screen right now, we're actually in a little test duel here, so I can kind of teach you guys how pendulum summoning is going to work in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, especially for all of you guys that are new to pendulum summoning here. So how pendulum cards work is that they're both monster and spell cards, and depending on how you want to activate the card is going to be corresponded to how it's going to work. So when you have a pendulum monster and you summon it in your monster zones right here, you go based off its monster effect. As you guys know, with effect monsters, there is effect text, and that is also on the bottom of pendulum cards too, where there's a bottom subtext for monster, pendulum, effect, and then the effects right there with its attack and defense. And when you summon a monster in your monster zone, the only thing you worry about is its monster effect now that it's on the field. Or you have the option of putting it into your pendulum zone in the scales, and the scales are going to be located on the bottom left and the bottom right of the duel field in your spell and trap card zone. And from there, when you activate a pendulum monster and put it into that zone, it's going to be treated as a spell card. So from there, you're going to be able to use its spell effect that you see in the middle between the picture and the bottom effect of the card there. So from there, you're going to be able to trigger its spell effect. And a bonus too with pendulum summoning, which is why it's a new summoning mechanic, is you see in between or in the middle of the card itself, there is scales with a number on it. And with the tutorial right here, I'm going to pop it up on screen from the Duel Links leak here. You'll see two cards right here called Time Gazer Magician and Stargazer Magician, which have two numbers on each of its thing, which is its scale. So as you get to see on the screen right now, we have a scale 1 and a scale 8, which is blue and which is red on the screen right here, which is really cool. And basically what that allows you to do is going to be able to do a pendulum summon. When you have two pendulum cards that are treated as spell cards in your scales or in your pendulum zones, which is going to be the left and right side of your spell and trap cards, you're going to be able to do what's called a pendulum summoning if you meet the requirements to do that. So as you can see, Stargazer on the left hand side has a blue scale for 1, and Time Gazer Magician has a red scale for 8. And from there, when you have both of those requirements set, you're going to be able to special summon monsters from your hand that are between the levels of 2 and 7. So if I had Stargazer and Time Gazer on my side of the field here in my respective pendulum zones, I'd be able to special summon my Dark Magician, Red Eyes Black Dragon, and Big Koala basically for free, because there's no cap on how many monsters you can summon onto the field unless your field is full, or if there is other restrictions stopping you from doing it, like an opponent's monster effect, or if the spell effect of the pendulum card states you can't summon certain monsters. Because you'll see in Duel Links as cards get released for pendulum summoning that there is going to be certain pendulum decks that won't allow you to special summon monsters unless it's X monster. So keep that in mind. But if the spell effect of the pendulum monster doesn't say otherwise, as long as you have these scale requirements, you can summon any amount of monsters in between the two numbers that are in each of your scales as much as you want. So again, in this hypothetical situation, if I had a Time Gazer and Stargazer on my side of the field in the respective pendulum zones, I'd be able to summon Dark Magician, Red Eyes Black Dragon, and Big Koala for free with no sacrificing for tribute summoning or any case like that. Because when you activate your scales and whatnot and go into pendulum summoning, it's going to be treated as a special summon, so you get to spam out as many monsters as you want. And that's where pendulum summoning gets really scary, which is probably why Konami's doing the Master Rule format or Master Rule 4 format, so that it doesn't get insane. Now, another cool thing about pendulum monsters is the fact that if they are on your side of the field when they're summoned and whatnot, if they actually get destroyed by battle or destroyed by card effect, instead of being sent to the graveyard, they actually get sent back to the extra deck face up. And what that allows you to do is that you're actually going to be able to special summon those pendulum monsters that are from your extra deck back onto the field and they don't need to be in your hand in order to special summon them. So if you meet the requirements to be able to Pendulum Summon, if you have your scales in your spell and trap card zone, you're going to be able to bring back your Pendulum monsters for no cost from your extra deck back onto the field. Now, the one thing that has not been confirmed yet is whether or not there's going to be a limit on how many Pendulum monsters are going to be able to special summon from the extra deck, because in the Master Rule 3 format, when Pendulums were first introduced, all Pendulum monsters that were sent to the extra deck face up, if you're able to special summon your Pendulum monsters through a Pendulum Summon, like if they were in your hand, as long as you have space in your field, you're able to bring them from your extra deck back onto the field. But then in Master Rule 4, they changed it to where you can only special summon one monster from your Pendulum zone back onto the field, because Master Rule 4 introduced the extra monster zone, where there is a extra monster zone in between each player's field, and from there, you're only able to special summon one Pendulum monster from your extra deck onto the field. So we're not sure exactly how Konami's going to do it, since link summoning is not a thing yet, but most likely they're going to probably limit it to where you can special summon your Pendulum monsters from your extra deck back onto the field, but they're going to have it limited to just one summon per turn from the extra deck specifically. They might make like its own Rule 4 Duel Links, so we're not sure about that. But if everything else is, from what we're seeing in the leaks, is correct, you're going to be able to special summon your Pendulum monsters that are face up from your extra deck back onto the field. Another thing to keep in mind too is that while you can special summon Pendulum monsters from your extra deck back onto the field, if they are face down, you won't be able to special summon them onto the field, and there's actually no way to have them face down in your extra deck. But also too, any of your face down extra deck monsters, you can't summon your synchro monsters and your fusion monsters that are level 7 through Pendulum Summoning. You still have to do the fusion summon requirements and the synchro summon requirements. The only extra deck Pendulum summons you can do is only if it is a face up Pendulum monster, then you can bring it back onto the field. Another thing too is that there is cards that exist that are called Synchro Pendulum monsters and Xyz Pendulum monsters. And with those ones, they are also in the extra deck, and you first have to meet its Synchro Summon requirement or its Xyz Summon requirement in order to summon it onto the field. But once that face-up Synchro Pendulum or Xyz Pendulum monster is on the field, you are going to be able to special summon them back if they got destroyed by battle or card effect, because since they're part Pendulum, they actually go back to the extra deck face-up. And if you meet the requirements in your scales, you can actually special summon those monsters back into the field if the card allows it. Most Pendulum Synchros and Xyz Synchros have a lot of text with those card effects, where they're able to use its ability to go as a scale into your spell and trap card zone from the monster zone, or sometimes they'll specifically say, hey, you have to meet X requirement to special summon this as a Pendulum monster when it's face up Pendulum back to your field. The card itself will say that, but that's kind of like the general ruling with the card right there. Also, if you are a player that is going against a Pendulum deck, a couple things to keep in mind too is that if a Pendulum card is in the spell and trap card zone as a scale, you can use back row removal cards to get rid of those cards. So cards like Cosmic Cyclone and Mystical Space Typhoon will be able to remove scales if they are in the spell and trap card zone, because they're treated as spell cards. If the Pendulum card was treated as a monster in the monster zone, you would not be able to use Mystical Space Typhoon or Cosmic Cyclone to get rid of those cards, simply for the fact that they're treated as monsters on the field, not spell cards at that moment. And vice versa, if you had cards that would be remove monster off the field into the graveyard or whatever the case may be, well, if that Pendulum card, even though it shows monster and spell and whatnot, even if that Pendulum monster or Pendulum card was in the spell and trap card zone, you wouldn't be able to trigger that card that states, hey, destroy monster that's face up on the field. You wouldn't be able to do that because the Pendulum card is currently treated as a spell card. And for the most part, that's pretty much it when it comes to Pendulum Summoning. It's a really cool and unique mechanic, and once you get used to it, it is pretty simple. The only thing that makes the summoning mechanic really complicated is the effects themselves from each respective Pendulum card, because it is a lot of text, and you got to remember when it's a monster and when it's a spell card on your field in order to which effect triggers. Hopefully Duel Links will make it easy for us when we're playing the game to like highlight what effect is going on, like maybe on the left hand side of the screen, or if you click on the card, if you're on mobile, it'll highlight what version of the card is being played. So basically when it's in the spell zone, it'll highlight only the spell effect and the monster effect is in gray, and vice versa. If the Pendulum card is on the monster zone, it'll highlight the monster text and then fade out the spell effect there. But again, Pendulums are just confusing only for the fact that its effects is what makes it confusing. The scale and whatnot's pretty easy to remember, and the game is going to tell you, hey, do you want to normal summon this card, or do you want to activate the card as a spell and trap card? Like, the icons are going to flash up on your screen when you're triggering the card, so Duel Links will hold your hand through most of the way. I am looking forward to the summoning mechanic, but I'm very interested on why Konami is making Pendulum Summoning Master Rule 4. Because my original thought process is that they were going to make Pendulum Summoning as Master Rule 3 simply for the fact of how clogged the field is in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. I don't feel like it would have been that hard to add scales on the left and right hand side of the duel field in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links in order to make Pendulum Summoning a thing. Because a lot of Pendulum decks are going to get nerfed dramatically if they got added into Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links for the fact that it's going to get so clogged in the duel field here. Because if you're going to play a Pendulum Summoning deck, it's going to take up 2 of your spell and trap card slots, and you're only going to have 1 more spell and trap card slots in order to play your deck. And a lot of decks in the game, or a lot of decks that are being hyped that are already in Duel Links but are going to get support for Pendulum Summoning, are going to be in a just tricky situation because the support cards are going to maybe help the deck, but the deck isn't going to be played the same as the TCG, like decks like DDDs that people are really hyped for. DDDs have a lot of spell and trap cards already for searching and destroying cards on the field. Now add the Pendulum cards to the mix, it's going to be really hard to mesh the whole deck together to make it cohesive because you're going to have to take out a lot of things out of the deck in order to make it work. So it's both exciting but worrying, because I think what's going to be cool about the fact that Pendulum Summoning is Master Rule 4 is the fact that we're going to see Pendulum Summoning in a way that we've never seen before with how the decks are going to be played out. Because some decks are probably going to work really well and some decks are not going to work really well due to this dramatic change, which makes Duel Links unique, but the decks that everybody's going to be hyped for are probably not going to be good simply for the fact that they're going to get nerfed. But I think some Pendulum decks that were really bad in the TCG could potentially be good in Duel Links for the fact of how limited the spell and trap card zone is. They're going to make it to where it's going to work out because they're going to have some certain advantages and whatnot, if you catch my drift. So there's a lot of cool things to look forward to with Pendulum Summoning, but there's a lot of things that are going to be worrisome too about it. So I'm both looking forward to it, but I still feel like it probably would have been the better decision to add separate pendulum scales on the outside of the whole duel field so that it's just easy to keep track of, and also for just learning Pendulum Summoning too, because some people are going to be really confused that their spawn chakra zones have these pendulum scales and whatnot. So we'll have to wait and see how it's all going to work out, but hopefully Pendulum Summoning will be pretty good in Duel Links. I know some people in the community have been saying that even though Pendulum Summoning is a mechanic getting introduced into Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, a lot of the characters that were in Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 mostly were centered around Synchro Summoning and Xyz Summoning anyways. So most likely what's going to happen is that Pendulum Summoning getting added into Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links is going to be like, at first, it's just whatever mechanic that's not going to work too well. But then we're going to get support for Synchro and Xyz Summon decks. They are going to make those decks even better, which would kind of make sense too, because Pendulum Summoning is getting added way earlier than we would have expected in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. We were expecting to get that a year later, not now. So I think Pendulum Summoning is going to get the same treatment as Synchro Summoning did in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links when that got introduced years ago. Because Synchro Summoning was just useless when the game first, or when Synchro Summoning first came out. But then as more boxes came out into the game, there was more support for Synchro Summoning, and then eventually became a competitive deck. I guarantee, though, that there is going to be competitive Pendulum decks, because Konami is here to make money, and they're going to introduce a new summoning mechanic. Why not make it good? I just feel like the first box might have some broken Pendulum cards, but they're not going to be good yet until we get more support for them later. So it's very interesting to see what they're going to do here. But overall, I'm really looking forward to it, and I cannot wait to see what Konami is going to do for Pendulum Summoning, because we really need this update to make Duel Links live again, because this game has been dead for the past 2 or 3 months. Other than that, though, I think that's going to do it for me in today's Duel Links video, talking about Pendulum Summoning and showcasing to you guys how it all works. If you guys enjoyed today's video, you know what to do. Leave a like on the video down below and sub to the channel for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links content. Other than that, it's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next Yu-Gi-Oh! video. Adios, everybody.